Good morning, all.
Hi, Liz.
Hello.
You're not going to believe that.
I'll
Liz,
believe.
I'm beginning to worry about David. The elevators weren't working. So, and you know him in stairs. So,
Why,
okay.
yeah,
So it took us a while to get down. I just left him off, actually. He's going upstairs to the doctor. Um, I hope he can find it. Anyway, so, there's five flights and then there's another flight down to the garage. But
right.
since he had trouble, we got off. I left him off at one, and I said, "Go round, and I'll pick you up." And in front, I go down, get the car, come to pick him up. He's not there. I'm looking all over. He got lost on floor one. He couldn't find the lobby. Liz, I don't
Oy
know what.
vey. Good
I'm
morning,
really.
Rabbi.
Good
I,
morning.
good morning, Rib. Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good
Okay.
morning.
I'm going to be on mute the whole time.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Okay.
okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Be
I'll
well.
be on
Bye.
and off depending if I want to open my mouth or not.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Hi, Sam. Hi, Liz. Hi, Lois. And here we go. Yeah. So last time we ended wondering with those courts that have that are set up with one expert and then the other two are not. So in 283 over here, it said he prohibited the judge from inclining towards the opinion of another judge by way of relying upon him and incriminating a guilty or acquitting the innocent without the matter being understood by him according to his own analysis and intellect based on the principles of the Torah. So, with regard to criminal issues, specifically, it says that the judge is not allowed to rely on the opinion of another judge, but rather it has to be an opinion he arrives at. Obviously, if there's argument, you could be swayed by a good argument, but you have to come to a conclusion based on your own reasoning at the final point. So we were wondering about other kinds of courts uh, where, again, like those courts, like I was on a conversion court where, on more than one conversion court where I was not an expert. I'm not a conversion expert. I've also been on a get court where I'm not the expert. And so the question was, does this apply there too? we just checked on proximity. That's just a first guess, basically, when you check on proximity. Where proximity was suggesting that even on those courts, you're meant to come to your own conclusion. You're supposed to hear the opinion of the other person, but then you're still supposed to use your own reason to the best of your ability to come to a conclusion that represents the best of your thinking, which might be true. I don't know, but so that'll be something that I'm going to that business halacha summit again. So I will try to ask that when we go there, how that works on these courts. And then we also talked about in 284 the fact that the courts are not allowed to appoint somebody to be a judge if they don't have the requisite knowledge of the law, even if they are politically powerful, for instance. I remember we've talked about this in the past. There was a Sanhedrin that was formed, I don't know, about 20 years ago. Adin Steinsaltz, a blessed memory, was appointed the head of the court. One of my teachers, and the one who gave me my smicha, my oral smicha test, Reb Yoel Schwartz, of blessed memory, he was on that court. So what they were hoping was that they would found the court, and that over time the court would gain gravitas. So initially, where people don't really know much about it, they're not going to get any very important cases, but over time, they'll have a case here and a case there that'll be referred to them, and then they'll develop some kind of momentum, and at some point, they will be considered a higher court, and then the hope is that they would eventually be recognized as a real Sanhedrin, as the official Sanhedrin. One of the things that appeared to be missing from that court were people that had political power. A lot of the people on that court were people that were known and had reputations as scholars, but they didn't really have political power. And if you want a court to become recognized as a higher court, you're gonna need a following of people that are willing to listen to the decisions of the court, are willing to seek out the court to make the decisions in difficult cases. And so that's just something I always felt, that it's not going to be able to get to the place it wanted to get unless they put people on that court that have large followings, and they're not just celebrities, but they're people that have like a kind of authority position in amongst large groups of people, like Hasidic Rebbes, certain Hasidic Rebbes or Rosh Hashivas, etc., that themselves, I mean, it's sort of like political power. In other words, they have lots of people that are willing to follow through on decisions that are made by them. So if that would happen, it seemed like they would get an opportunity to become more powerful and maybe get to the place they wanted to get to, but they didn't have those kind of people. So that's why this is sort of interesting, because here it's saying that these people that are put on the court have to be put on there because they're experts in the law, not necessarily because they're powerful people. You could have both. You could have somebody who's an expert in the law and a powerful person. You could have had somebody like Rovad Yosef, let's say, who was a powerful figure. He's not just, and he's also clearly he was he was viewed as one of the great experts. So so you could have had the combination, but they didn't. But certainly you can't just appoint somebody because they have political power if they are themselves are not experts in the law. Okay, now 285. He prohibited giving false testimony, and that is his saying, you shall not testify against your neighbor false testimony. And this has been repeated with different language. So that's one of the 10 statements, 10 commandments. And this has been repeated with a different language, and that is his saying vain testimony. The Torah has already, so in Hebrew, that language, it's called edut sheker or aid shav. Sheker means a lie, shav means vain or false. I mean, shav is like, yeah, like false, empty. They translate as vain. The Torah has already decreed about this negative commandment. You shall do to him as he schemed. Now that specifically is talking about what we call aid zomem. That's a witness who let's say a group of witnesses that later on another set of witnesses come and say they couldn't have seen that because they were with us in a completely different place. That's called an aid zomem. And an aid zomem is specifically where you punish them according to what they tried to do to the other person. So let's say this was a court case, and the purpose of the court case was to resolve a dispute between two people. And let's say they were testifying that so-and-so owes the other guy $10,000. And then they are found to be aid zomem. So then they owe 10,000. The witnesses owe $10,000 to the person they were trying to testify against. So that's where it specifically says that he's interestingly putting this together with false testimony in general. There's a prohibition for scheming witnesses, le'edim zomamin. In the language of the Mechilta, you shall not testify against your neighbor. This is a prohibition against edim zomamin, scheming witnesses. There's also lashes for violations of this commandment, as is explained at the beginning of Makos, which is Sam Schwartz's special tractate. He is our expert in tractate Makos. That is always said whenever Makos comes up, to Sam's chagrin and annoyance. Next, 286. He prohibited the judge that he not accept testimony.
Only because I live in Florida, and I was with the Aiden Zolomine, that when
They were
here,
there in Florida
there's-
with you.
Right, there's no
Yeah.
way they could have been in another place. They were
That's
with
right.
me. They're in Florida enjoying
That's
the
it.
warm weather.
Where are you now, Sam?
Sarasota.
How do you like that?
No.
How is the weather?
Too many Wednesdays off from Nachem I missed. So I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to have to hold your book. I finished the.
Did you finish it? Did you love it?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. Just as good as all the others.
All right.
Okay. So he prohibited the judge that he not accept the testimony of a sinner and not do anything based on his testimony. So initially the way the word in the Torah, it's Russia. A sinner is a Russia. This is somebody he gets this classification because he has been found guilty of prohibitions that can get you this designation. So let's say he was a thief. He was found to be a thief. So now he cannot be a witness. So if one of these people would step up as a witness, you're meant to do some research on this person to make sure that this person is in fact a qualified aid, a kosher aid. If in fact they are determined to be a Russia and the judge still takes their testimony, that would be a violation of this thing. Now, in the American court system, and I don't know how this is in other countries, but in the American court system, it's left up to the judge or the jury to decide if they're going to trust a person's testimony. So a lot of times you will get testimony from people that would have the status of Russia. So you might have the cellmate of someone who will testify about what that person had told him in confidence in while they were in the cell together, in a jail cell together. So that other person would most likely have a status of what we would call a Russia. In a Torah court, you cannot get testimony from those people. You could not get, like, let's say you grant immunity to somebody to testify in some kind of trial, and I only know this based on my research watching probably thousands of criminal procedural shows, that and many of them rely on testimony from people who would probably have the status of Russia. So in a Jewish court, that would not be allowed. And clearly, an American court system, it is allowed. It's left up to the jury or to the judge to decide whether or not they're going to believe this testimony, but they can. And that is saying, do not place your hand with an evildoer to be a violent witness. So aid, that word, this is that word from last week's Torah portion, Hamas, aid Hamas. So a witness that is Hamas. So that is the language of the Torah with reference to this witness. In last week's Torah portion, it said the earth was full of Hamas. And Hamas is variously translated as violence, as evil doing. Sometimes it means specifically rampant theft. But anyways, you're not supposed to accept the testimony of them.
Did Hamas do their name on purpose with this wife?
No. I will find out. No. Do you know what it means?
Aaron wants to know if it means Hamas with a chet or with a hey.
In the Torah, it's Hamas with a chet.
What about in modern Hebrew?
And now the people are Hamas. Are they a hey with a hey or with a chet still?
I'm assuming they don't use the letter chet or hey, but the way it is pronounced, it sounds to me, they are hard to tell apart because the hey can be very guttural sound. Let's just see here. What is the etymology of Hamas? In Arabic, it can be connected to the word flame or burn, symbolizing passion and intensity. It's similar to shamas. They have a word shamas, which means sun. The surname Hamas is often found among Lebanese and Syrian families, where it suggests either a connection to a region. Because there's a town also called Hamat. There's a bunch of towns called Hamat in Tanakh. So it could be if somebody had that name. In Hebrew, it means violence. In Arabic, it means flame. But again, I can't, here, let's see how they pronounce it.
The shamash is from sun,
It
you
says
know?
Hamas.
Yeah, so Shemesh is related to, they have the Arabic word that's similar to that too.
Shola.
Shola. Wow, how they pronounce that doesn't sound anything like what we say. Here,
Sharon, say here.
No.
Please, Sharon.
It says Hamas with a stress on the first syllable, Hamas.
who's that? Who are you talking about now? Them, the Arabic word?
Yeah, it looks like it, yeah.
So I have
Hamas.
here,
Shola.
I'm not sure.
this is,
Is it?
I have the pronunciation right here. One second. Here it goes.
Shola.
Shola.
Huh? What?
I don't understand how that is the origin.
Oh, it's also worth noting that while related, the Arabic word Hamas is distinct from the Hebrew word with a similar pronunciation, spelled differently, which means violence or oppression.
That's the Hebrew one. But the
Right.
Arabic one, they're suggesting means flame or to burn or connected to the sun or something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're related.
Correct. I agree. Although, I mean, flame, I could see flame or burn at some point, I don't know, slipping over into something like that, but
It
I
says the
agree.
word, it says an Arabic word that means zeal, enthusiasm, strength, or bravery.
Right.
But the acronym, it's an acronym. It stands for Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyah, which translate Islamic resistance movement. I don't think it's related to the Hebrew at all.
Right. I agree. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay. So the explanation appeared in Mechilta de Rabbi Yishmael, do not make a violent one a witness, to exclude thugs, robbers from being witnesses, as is stated, if a violent witness rise up. The regulations of this commandment have been explained in chapter 3 of Sanhedrin. Okay, and now in 287, he prohibited a judge from accepting the testimony of relatives against each other. And that is his saying, fathers shall not be put to death for children. And the received explanation appeared in the Sifrei, the fathers should not be put to death from the testimony of children, nor children from the testimony of fathers. And the same is the law with monetary cases. So the family members are not allowed to testify against each other and in court, and it doesn't necessarily mention it here, but they're also not supposed to testify together. But anyways, this one's talking about testifying against a relative. Fathers should not be put to death from testimony of children, or children from testimony of fathers. The same is the law with monetary cases. However, he, capital H, mentioned capital cases by way of amplification, that we not say that since this is loss of life, we would not suspect the relative about it, but rather use his testimony. For his testimony is for the loss of a relative's life. This is not the place to suspect him. So since he's a relative, if he's testifying in a way that could lead to the death of another relative, they're suggesting that since this is unexpected, we might say we should rely on it or trust it, but because it's expected that a relative would lie for the benefit of another relative, but not expected that they would lie to the detriment of another relative. You might have thought. And that is why he took the example first of the relatives of the greatest love, and that is the love of a father for a child or a child for a father. Just to let you know that under any circumstance, they are not allowed to testify against each other. And behold, one will then say, since we do not accept the testimony of father for a child, even to make him liable for the death penalty, is it not all the more so that other relatives will not be accepted? This is the scriptural decree. It has no explanation in any way. In other words, This is what he's calling Xeris HaKosov. This is not based on reason. This prohibition is not based on reason. It doesn't matter if you would come up with a reason to make an exception, because this is not founded on a particular reason. It's just Xeris HaKosov. It has no explanation in any way. And the regulation, he had said this also about testimony in general. He said the Rambam, I think we even saw it together, maybe not, that the Rambam had said in his codes that the fact that we rely on two witnesses to put somebody to death, that is also Xeris HaKosov. That's a decree of the Torah. Because we could come to a point where we decide that human testimony is unreliable, or we don't even have to come to that point where we've seen it a lot. We could just imagine that it could be unreliable. And still, the Torah is saying that you are supposed to rely on testimony of two people. Obviously, you can take time to question the witnesses to make sure that they know what they're talking about, and to get a sense if you think they're telling the truth. But if they do seem to know what they're talking about, and they seem to be, they don't seem to be outright lying to you, then you're supposed to rely on them. And he said that's also Xeris HaKosov. That's a decree of the Torah, even though you might be able to argue from reason against doing that. He prohibited a judge to declare punishments or to make one liable for money with the testimony of one witness, even if he was most fit. So this is talking about cases that require two witnesses. In cases where there is a requirement of two witnesses, like in capital cases or in the case of matters that have to do in monetary cases. So in those kind of cases, you require two witnesses. Let's say you don't have two, but you have one very compelling witness. And this witness is like the most trusted person on earth, and they're making a very compelling case. You're still not allowed to rely on them in a Jewish court of law. And they said he may not rise out about any sin, but he may arise to obligate someone to take an oath. So what you could do is, let's say it's about money. Let's say it's about some kind of money. Now, let's say it's there's an argument over an estate. There's an argument over an estate. And there's one person who claims that he is due, let's say, $100,000 from the estate. Now, so he's making that claim. There's a witness that will testify that this person is not owed the $100,000. We don't know what another witness has testimony that would convince us that he not.
Why didn't you get it in Skokie?
So there's a witness that, let's say there's a witness that is testifying that he's not owed it, but it's only one witness. So you can't rely on that one witness, but you are allowed, because there was that one witness, you are allowed now to make this guy take an oath. Regularly, the guy would just get his $100,000 and he wouldn't have to make an oath. But now that there's this single witness who's claiming that he has testimony that would demonstrate that this guy is not owed the money, so you can't rely on that witness to not give the guy the money, but you could rely on that witness to get the guy to make an oath. And that is something that people don't want to lie under oath. That's the assumption. And so that's already an advantage if you can get somebody to have to make an oath in order to take his money. And that is that is a benefit of one witness. Okay. And the regulations of this commandment have been explained in chapter 9 of Sanhedrin. 289, that he prohibited the judge not to kill someone clean and innocent. And that is his saying, you shall not murder. Now, you would wonder why there needs to be a commandment about that. Look at this. This is fascinating. This is chapter 1 of the laws of Rotsea, of murderers. When a person kills a human being, he transgresses a negative commandment, which it says, do not murder. And again, that's from the 10 statements. If a person kills a Jew intentionally in the presence of witnesses, he will be executed by decapitation. That's the punishment that's called hereg. Hereg is decapitation. It's death by sword. This is implied by Exodus 21:20, which states that when a person kills a servant, vengeance will certainly be executed. The oral tradition explains that this refers to decapitation. Whether he kills the victim with an iron weapon or burns him with fire, the murderer will be executed by decapitation.
You know, the decapitation sounds so brutal, it's hard to believe I could not decapitate somebody under those circumstances, you know?
I think I could get you to the point where you could. It's like those guys who walk on hot coals. You just have to meditate a little bit beforehand and just get in the mode. And I think at that point you'd be able to decapitate the person. I agree it would take work, Sam, but I think we could get you there. Okay, I'm joking. Yeah,
You
but
think there's people who would do it like that?
well, there's I mean, there are executioners. Did you ever see Wolf Hall? That PBS, I mean, it's a masterpiece production. Well, I mean, it's a BBC production. It was like PBS Masterpiece had it. Wolf Hall, it's like 6 or 8 episodes. Mark Rylance is in it. What's her name that played the Queen, the first 2 seasons of The Crown is in it. What's his name from Billions is in it. And anyways, there's Damian Lewis is the king. Mark Rylance is what's his name? I can't remember any names. Anyways, the point is Thomas. What's his? You know, the famous.
I didn't see it, so I can't really say.
What was that famous advisor to Henry VIII, who eventually he himself gets decapitated. Anyways, the point is in Wolf Hall, they have a decapitation scene, and they also like explain it beforehand because the queen, who is played by that character from The Crown, is going to be decapitated, and I think it's the executioner himself is explaining that he stands behind the person and they don't see him. They're hooded, so they don't see him. And he was explaining that if they don't move, then they don't feel it. It happens so quickly, and it's over in a split second. And as long as they don't move, if they move and the cut is not a clean cut, then it may not be as painless. But if this is what he claimed, and they don't actually show the head coming off, although they did in Papillon with a guillotine, they did show heads being sliced
Everybody
with the
watching
guillotine.
too many shows there.
That's it. I have to do my research, Sam.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah. So that's that. So, just
Just a joke, Rabbi.
so yeah, I know. Well, so here we go. It is a mitzvah for a blood redeemer to kill the murderer. The blood redeemer shall put the murderer to death. Whoever is fit to inherit the victim's estate becomes the redeemer of his blood. So how are you a blood redeemer? This is somebody who could inherit the victim's estate. Now, it doesn't, I don't know what that means, because if, like, for instance, if somebody has a son, then the son is the inheritor of his estate. If somebody doesn't have a son, then his brothers are inheritors of his estate. If he, or it could be his father, or it could be his uncles. Going farther back, if so, there's closer inheritors, and then there's ones farther away. So does this mean the pool of all potential ones? Because that would mean anybody who's a blood relative of this guy, anybody who's a blood relative. Or does it mean the one who's going to actually inherit him? So if there is a son, then only the son would be the one who's allowed to kill the killer. If the blood redeemer did not desire, was unable to kill the murderer, or if the victim did not have a relative to redeem his blood, the court executes the murderer by decapitation. Is that not crazy? He is saying here, the Rambam is saying that the one who is supposed to carry out the death penalty is the blood redeemer. It's only if the blood redeemer does not desire or is unable to kill the murderer, then the court executes him. So it could be that the actual executioner would be expected to be a family member initially. The following rule apply if a father kills his son. If the victim has a son, this son should kill his grandfather because he is the blood redeemer. If he does not have a son, none of the victim's brothers become the blood redeemer.
What's blood redeemer mean?
He's a relative who is supposed to kill the one who killed his relative. A blood redeemer means a relative who is now supposed to kill this other person. So the Rambam said he is somebody who inherit. And now he's saying, if he does not have a son, none of the victim's brothers become the blood redeemer who must kill the father. Instead, he should be executed by the court. Oh, so here they have it. So the Rambam clarifies it. It means a son. It means a son. When it says, whenever it says blood redeemer, goel hadam, when it refers to that term, it means the son. Brothers are not part of it. Cousins are not part of it. Uncles are not part of it. A father is not part of it. Only a son is, according to the Rambam, or daughter. Both a male and a female may become blood redeemers. How do you like that? So it could be a son or a daughter. And the court is enjoined not to accept a ransom from the murderer to save him from execution, even if he gave all the money in the world. And even if the blood redeemer was willing to forgive him, he should be executed. The rationale is that the soul of the victim is not the property of the blood redeemer, but the property of the Holy One, blessed be he. And he commanded, do not accept ransom for a soul of a murderer. So, so you can't, the only thing could be that if, let's say you're the son or daughter and you don't want to do it, so then the court will end up doing it, but somebody's got to do it because the person has to be killed.
That's why God can't just take care of the killing.
Right. He wants us to do it. I know. He wants us to take responsibility for this for some reason. He wants the community to take responsibility. That is something that comes early in the Torah, already in Noach. It says God, it does say God will avenge the blood if somebody else doesn't, but the courts are supposed to take care of this. The people themselves, for some reason, we are charged with making sure that this happens. Do not pollute the land in which you live, for blood will pollute the land. Whatever that means. When a murderer kills willfully, he should not be killed by witnesses or observers until he is brought to court and sentenced to death. So you can't have a lynching. As implied by a murderer should not be put to death until he stands before the congregation in judgment. This law applies to all those liable for execution by the court who transgressed and performed the forbidden act. They should not be executed until their trial is completed by the court. When does the above apply? When the person has already transgressed and performed the transgression for which he is liable to be executed by the court. When, however, a person is pursuing a colleague with the intent of killing him, even if the pursuer is a minor, every Jewish person is commanded to attempt to save the person being pursued, even if it is necessary to kill the pursuer. Notice how it said that even if he is afilu haya harodef katan, even if it's a minor, and this could mean a child. So if the child is determined to be a pursuer, so then you have to save the other person. Now, you don't necessarily have to kill the child, but if that's the only way to save the other person, then you do have to kill the child. Even if it's a child. And that's the law of Rodef, and he's going into the law of Rodef here. Now, why were we going to this? Because the question is, why do they have to tell a judge not to kill an innocent person? So that's why we're looking at this. So now it's going into laws of Rodef. Yeah, like here it said, when a person could prevent a murder or rape by maiming the limbs, do not take the trouble. Oh, here it is. When a person could prevent a murder or a rape by maiming the Rodef's limbs, but did not take the trouble and instead saved the victim by killing him, he is regarded as one who shed blood and is liable for death. Nevertheless, he's not going to be executed by the court. So, in other words, if you have to try, if you can, you have to save the person by maiming the other one, not just automatically trying to kill him. Anyways, that's the Rodef thing, but this is supposed to be the place. This is where they're sending us for the thing about a judge. And it was not in this chapter. All right, we'll have to see who talks about that. I look forward to learning with you guys tomorrow. I'm grateful that we got to learn with each other today. And so for tomorrow, I'm going to try to figure out why the Rambam has to list this as a mitzvah. Isn't this obvious? Isn't this just plain murder? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
All right. Be well, guys. Bye-bye.